Greetings, rogues and weary travelers. You are listening to the Going Rogue Gaming Podcast, the Grog Pod, a roguelike podcast about roguelike games. I will be your guide. Through my words, you will experience the land of Elfenheart. From the mighty mountains that border the goblin wastelands to the sewers that run like a spiderweb through the city of Jandor, I, podcast listeners, will be your eyes. I will be everyone you meet, every creature you encounter, every trap you spring. And with me on this adventure, and with me on this podcast are our chosen adventurers. You can't do adventure twice in the same sentence.
Right.
Seeking fame and glory.
Oh, that'd be me, Will Wright. I'm your, what am I? I'm a flame elemental, automatically winning all your battles for you.
I'm Colin. I was going to say I'm your disappointed DM, but sounds like we have an enthusiastic DM. So I'll just be, I'll be Holg, your half-orc fighter with a frost axe.
This week, we're talking Low Magic Age, released January 10th, 2017. This is ironically our third 2017 year game in a row after Warsim and Cogbind. So I think we're kind of on a hot streak as well. You can find Low Magic Age on Steam and GOG, good old games. This was developed by Low Magic Studios, who, as far as I can tell, I think is a team of 2 people, but I think one guy basically did all the programming. And well, there's a lot of writing in this game too that deserves credit, but it's very small team with various artist credits as well. More stats. Low Magic Age pulls in on our stat sheet at the 186th most popular roguelike.
Are you kidding me?
On Steam. That's what the data says. I can't argue with the numbers here. 2,760 total reviews and the 91st percentile in terms of popularity. Will,
the summary?
You have run afoul of some miscreants in the market. And you have to roll for initiative with a one-sentence description of what one does in Low Magic Age.
Oh, it's D&D combat, and that's about as short a sentence as you can make, because that's what it's supposed to be. The whole game is just all of what is only D&D combat, like all the other everything else trimmed away, and then like a big open world where you wander around and do the same fucking thing over and over and over and over again.
Specifically D&D 3.5.
Oh, I don't know the details. These 2 nerds over here, they know more about the D&D world than I do. But
it's based off the 3.5 OGL, so and with some things modified.
And just for those who don't know, myself, what that means, like versus like 3.5
open games license. 3.5 is the one that was right now the D&D that's out that most people, including your other 2 hosts, Scott and I, we play 5e. There was 4e, which is like the bastard child that everyone hated, and then 3.5 was the like super crunchy edition that was before that. So that if you were from like, what was it, 2000, I think, is it 3.5?
Wait, does this affect like the spells that are available, or like what happens when you have like initiative, like I don't know, like but the dice rolls? What is it
just that the spreadsheets are bigger, or
the spreadsheets are bigger?
I don't know what that means.
How many?
I was almost half joking with that, but then I remembered like, oh yeah, D&D is just a bunch of spreadsheets, isn't it?
I'm gonna look up.
I mean, I love a good spreadsheet, but
I think in okay, so there are like 1,000 feats. They're like I can't remember where. I need to find this list. There's like hundreds and hundreds of feats in 3.5, and in 5e there are not that many.
It's like
my characters were all humans, so they only had 2 feats. I don't know.
No.
Well,
technically, you played, what was it, like a robot monk, so you could have had more than 2 feet. But
I mean, yeah, back when I tried the D&D, yeah.
So the first talking point that I have in my huge Google Doc here is related to. So we kind of talked that this is very much a D&D game, but I think like it probably bears expanding on like like maybe game D&D versus in like real life D&D? Is that worth expanding on, do we think?
Yeah. So I mean, I think the biggest.
So maybe like, okay, we'll back up a bit. For if you are one of the 3 listeners who has downloaded this podcast accidentally and you've never heard of what Dungeons and Dragons is before, and you're wondering why we keep joking about spreadsheets and robot monks and ice wizards, what even is Dungeons and Dragons normally, I guess?
I mean, it's part of the tabletop role-playing genre. It's the originator of most of them. You know, it is a world run and controlled by a literal human being, handcrafting a world for their players to run around in, doing all the voices, being creative, hand sculpting the battles, doing silly voices, and
You mentioned
running
voices.
the combat, which is
you like the voices.
running the combat, which is intrinsically not that good, but you wrap it up with all the other fun stuff, and you have a person like gently pressing on all the levers to make sure that it's a fun and interesting experience. And then you have something like this, which is, imagine you took that mediocre combat and you got rid of all of the flavor and you just had mediocre combat. It is interesting because like there are D&D based games out there that are good. Baldur's Gate is an amazing game. But I think that Baldur's Gate succeeds despite the D&D combat system, not necessarily because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like D&D is built for humans playing with other humans, and spend it. It's like combat in normal D&D takes a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like people are talking and trying to decide things. You get like 3 rounds of combat and then it's over because that's already taken an hour and a half, which is just you could not do that for a video game and have it be interesting.
Right.
Especially if there's 6 people, you're just like, I don't know, just go hit that thing. That's definitely going to be the best move.
And when you talk about combat in D&D, it is basically just, well, like it's more than this, but it is effectively just a bunch of grids. And a lot of times you'll see like people roll out like a giant thing of graph paper onto a table, and there'll be like little miniature figures that are moving around, and you have to position them, and you have to make sure that oh, I don't want to get surrounded by rats or have this giant slime encase me and then I'm out of combat or something like that. So there's like, I guess, like a reasonable tactical element to it.
Well, and I think the biggest difference between something like playing D&D with a DM and playing a game like this is the extras, the things that are happening within combat but outside of it. Like, hey, DM, can the druid that transformed, or the bard that transformed into a dinosaur, can he pick me up in his mouth and throw me at the flying dragon? Like, that's not. And they were like, yeah, you know what? That sounds fucking awesome. Let's do it. I'm gonna totally allow you to do that.
And of course, that's in this game too, because it's all combat focused, right?
Of course, yes. The mouth throw dinosaur option. You have to get the feet for it specifically, though.
Mm-hmm.
No, but like there's like the things in normal D&D that make it interesting are the nuances and the stakes. The stakes of the battle are, there's almost always like a reason you're fighting, a reason that you're doing something, at least in modern D&D. I've read stuff like maybe the old like Gary Gygax edition one was just like they're just dungeon crawling and grinding for gold, but that has not been my experience with D&D in the year of our Lord 2023.
So Low Magic Age is very interesting. I think this game may have fooled us into covering it on a roguelike podcast, because I don't think there's anything particularly roguey about this game other than, I guess, grid-based movement ? there's various elements that much like pornography, you know, roguiness in a game is like, you know it when you see it. It's hard to define, but you know it when you see it. Be it procedural generation or permadeath or, you know, run-based systems, very few of which are integral to the gameplay experience here. But I think Low Magic Age is better described under the genre of like a party-based RPG. So maybe something like a Divinity Original Sin, like a Pillars of Eternity, or, you know, possibly a Baldur's Gate game, but less of a focus on story, more of a focus on combat, and I guess like more. I think if you were like we've said earlier that this is basically just a D&D combat simulator, and I think that if you build it as such, I think it does what it says on the tin pretty well. But, you know, like Colin, that you were saying, D&D in IRL is so much more of like an experience beyond just spreadsheets bumping into each other.
Yeah, and it's like D&D is optimized for a different thing. Like, it's optimized for people playing it in real life, in real time, interacting with each other. Like, you wouldn't build a computer game with the same stuff in exactly the same way, for the most part. Like, there's so many things that you can do with a computer that's super easy. Like, you can start getting into the weird nitty-gritty of like percentiles and extra things that if you're trying to do stuff like that in real life D&D, it starts getting too bogged down, and you know, you don't have time for like, oh, Billy over there is gonna just he's gonna spend the next half an hour trying to like optimize how he wants to put this on his character, or like, yeah,
They're just counting dice. I mean, like that at some point, that's just like, there's just like, oh, you got to keep rolling, counting. Does this win? Does that win? But I'll offer this as like a way that maybe this could be cool if it had the Chat GPT plugin, right? Are we meaning like as soon as like D&D like has like, this would be the visual game, and then on the other side, it's just like you're in the middle of combat. You're like, hey, can I have the dinosaur like throw me? And then the Chat GPT is like, well, I'm a DM, and yeah, I think that's cool. So there you go. Like just do a roll for it. I think that's on the horizon, but that's not this game.
Yeah, and I think that it's definitely not this game. As far as I can tell, this game doesn't have a story.
No, it has like a tutorial, which is just like to walk you through some of the main mechanics, which felt like a story, but is absolutely not. And then it's just like, once you get to the end of that, and I know because I think out of all of us, I played it for like almost 20 hours. I mean, I say played, and I feel the need to like,
you farmed those Steam cards for 20 hours.
No, I need to like say that I really, guys, I didn't play it that much. I just had it on the side of my screen. I wasn't that involved because it was just it was really bad, and I just kind of had it on the side of my screen. And most of the time, it's just like an auto battler where if you just hit space, and then everyone just kind of fights, and you're kind of like, can watch YouTube or scroll Reddit or something. Like, oh yep, I won. There we go. Moving on. And I just kept hoping that there would be something more in the game, but somehow I made it to the end of 20 hours without finding that.
Yeah, there's I guess two major options that you have in this game. One is the arena mode, and then one is the adventure mode. And I think if this game, like, what was it? I was trying to do research badly on this game, just to try to like dig
does
up.
That mean you were trying to do research in a way that was not good, or you were trying very hard?
I mean, maybe a mix of both for this game, because like this game I think would benefit greatly from a wiki, so like you could try to like grok more about what's happening, but like maybe the actual wiki for this game is just the D&D 3rd edition rulebook that you just want to go down your local game store and buy. But yeah, like doing the research for this game was super difficult because it was very hard to find any active info about this game other than like the Steam forums, which I think are active but weren't quite what I was looking for in terms of like, what do you do in this game? What's all the stuff? Arena, adventure mode, and I guess maybe to a certain extent, character building. Like if you just wanted to build out like a character sheet, which is super in depth. But Arena, we've kind of touched on combat, D&D style combat, and the arena mode in this game is very much just forget everything else. This is just straight up combat. There's not even like I guess I'm thinking of some kind of story hook or something to like draw you through of like, well, why am I doing the arena mode exactly?
What I did not touch it at all. What level characters do you have in it? Can you build any level character?
Character level building in this game is super weird and needlessly frustrating, I think. Arena mode, let's see if I remember it. I think you start with like a pre-generated party of 6 that I think are all level 1s, but you start in various like phases of the arena, and like your first phase is fighting level 1 monsters, so it's even footing. But when you start up a game here and you just jump into arena mode, you have like random dudes. You can build your own party from characters that you've created, or you can like swap people in and out, so like you have reasonable levels of flexibility there. But the thing that I found super needlessly frustrating was jumping into a D&D game. The first thing I wanted to do was, well, obviously I'm going to recreate our D&D party that we have and send them on all sorts of wacky adventures in this game. And then I kept scratching my head when I was like, okay, well, why is it not letting some of these characters in? There's a thing, I don't know if this is, this might be a 3rd edition rule thing. There's a zillion house rules in this game where it just tweaks it ever so slightly so that it uses low magic age house rules of, well, like monster bonuses every 2 levels use blah. And the super frustrating one is where if you build a character, it's a level adjustment is what it is. So I built out a paladin, I guess human, because the giant option was available. Tried to build out Wolmash, and he started off as like a level 1+1. And then same thing with Hjolthrin, who I also couldn't get to be chaotic evil for some reason. He could, like, paladins can only be lawful good in this game, which anyway, 3rd edition stuff.
Yeah, I mean, older editions, you used to, like, if you stopped being good or lawful, I can't remember, it was either lawful good or one of those combinations, you'd just be like, you can't be a paladin anymore. You just get kicked out of being a paladin.
I guess, like, to balance that out, I did set Hjolthrin's character avatar as like one of these like devilish ghoul characters. I'm like, okay, well, at least it's like halfway there. But trying to like build the characters, and I'm like, okay, got all of our characters built. I've got Umbariel in there. I've got Odom. I've got Switch.
These are all of the members of the party in our D&D campaign. So.
And I was like, all right, set forth, let's start adventuring. And then it was like, can't do it. Some of these people in your party are too high of level. I'm like, what are you talking about? I just made them. Depending on certain character traits, it's like, oh, actually this paladin here is level 2 to start off with. Or this troll character that you build. Shimmy couldn't be, a walking artificial sentient suit of armor. It had to be a troll in this game, unfortunately. Sorry, Shimmy. But started off at level 7, and I guess like exactly. I understand the game balance being totally broken if you have like a level 7 troll in your party to start with and you're just clubbing people into the ground. But come on, man. I mean, like, that's got to be the first thing that people are going to do when they pick up this game is like, I want to make my D&D party and I want to send them on wacky adventures.
Well, I didn't want to make my D&D party because I don't play that, but like I went for the trolls too. I went for 6 trolls right away. I'm like, I'm going to spend 30 minutes handcrafting these trolls with these very specific traits. I'm like, yes, 6 trolls. How much fun is this going to be? And then I got to that like start, and it's just like, sorry, I can't allow you to do that because it's too high level. I'm just like, why didn't you tell me that before I spent 30 minutes on like building all these things? It's so frustrating. You can't even get those trolls.
Well, to the game's credit, You can turn that off. There is in the house rules section that's like a mile-long list of like constitutional legalese.
Right. I read, but then you're just overpowered. They don't have it. They don't have the ability to balance the game towards that starting character,
like auto level scaling or something.
You can't start out with a baby troll.
Start everyone with like start everyone else at level 7 or like start like nerf the trolls until I don't know. That's all I wanted was troll people. So
troll and diaper.
So arena mode, you can build up your party from like the character creation stuff. They all have to be, well, again, if you turn that rule off, you can jam them all together and put them into a n by n grid of squares where some of the squares are difficult terrain and you can't maneuver around a rock or something. But it is a series of 5 fights with 1 boss battle at the end. And you have options to like level up and rest between hand. You can visit a shop. Like, it seems pretty well crafted if the only thing that you were interested in was, I just want to go in and I just want to fight some monsters in a D&D rule set. You're done. You got kind of everything you need. But as I was going through this, I wanted to test a couple things. I wanted to test A, how broken summoners were, and B, how far could the huge oversight our in real life D&D party get on just auto battle mode, and who would make it further. So I had a race between the summoners, and like the first wave that I did, I put all the summoners on auto attack, which is not auto spell, by the way.
Right. That's a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And they got clobbered after maybe like 3 of the easiest rounds, unsurprisingly. Yep. I did another playthrough with all summoners where I first summoned all the elementals and then hit the auto run button. And they got further, but I think they still did not get past the first boss. They beat the wave 1 boss, but then lost the next immediate round after that. The huge oversight party was defeated by the wave 1 boss. So unsurprisingly, our in real life D&D party probably not as powerful as a clan stack of all summoners who need to spend all their gold to rest in between fights. But arena mode, is kind of like 85% of the core game here, I think, just in terms of its functionality and what else is kind of going on.
And the other 15% of the adventure mode game is like procedurally generated dungeons, which is just a series of fights, but also picking locks, finding traps,
and traps,
defusing the traps. That's those are the 3 things that happen in a dungeon. Is you enter a room and there are monsters. You go down a hallway and there's a trap that you search for and you either find or do not find. And then you try and defuse that trap. Or there's like a chest in a wall.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I mean, I guess I didn't do that many, but that's all I found.
No, that's all there is.
There's no like, you go into a room and you're like, what's in this room? It's like, it is a gray square box with a picture of a
helmet, I think. Yeah.
A helmet. Yeah. And then if you had already beat some monsters in there, it's like some monsters with a X over them.
So what's interesting here is Darkest Dungeon came out a year before this game. And admittedly, the game Darkest Dungeon, very well regarded roguelike, has lots of dungeon diving. And I thought it felt similar here, but profoundly less interesting because there's just like not as much like stuff. And in Darkest Dungeon, you're kind of navigating through like these maze-like corridors in a similar fashion, but there's encounters around the corner. Like, I don't like, if you feel like a very much sense of foreboding and dread of like, okay, do I want to push my luck going down this hallway a little more? Oh, hey, there's like a thing to interact with. Okay. Here, I was very disappointed to see that it's only traps is it only traps that you encounter in hallways?
Traps and chests.
Traps and chests. Okay.
And you have to pick them regardless. So you click a button that just says, I mean, it's just if you just had an auto clicker, it would take you through the whole dungeon. I mean,
yeah, but like that kind of procedural, like top down dungeon maze navigation, I had high hopes for, because I was like, well, Darkest Dungeon kind of does it in a similar manner. I'm curious to see what here is. But you're right, it's just like literal empty rooms where it's not even like equipment or like lore drops or anything about the world. And I chalked that up at first, be like, okay, it's procedural generation. The world is procedurally generated, question mark. So it's probably hard to like get all those things to line up. But yeah.
I think the thing is, I think this game is fundamentally not finished. Like, it's been in early access since 2017, and it is technically in early access. And like, if you go look at the development priorities from the dev, it's basically, I want to get every single combat thing done perfectly before I even start on the campaign. And I think that it's a game that's not finished masquerading as a game that's playable. Like, it's someone who has effectively recreated a moderately okay D&D 3.5e combat simulator, and then built the thinnest of shell, the thinnest skin of a world in which to go fight monsters, and no hook or reason to do so.
Well, I can give you some of the details for like what that looks like, which is like not much, because I actually finished all the quote unquote campaign, which is essentially it guides you to make sure you know how to cut down trees, because this is an element that we haven't talked about, is trees and mining, and then like crafting some of the stuff.
Right. I didn't even get that. We can talk about mining because it looked so incredibly boring that once I looked it up, I was like, I can't imagine even doing this once.
Right. And then like, so you need some trees because you need wood, and you have to mine. Like, there's all kinds of diversity of things, but like the experience is you have to like, you pay for the rights to a mine, you go into it, and then you highlight some rocks, and then your dude just kind of goes over there and automatically mines them and mines it all out. And then there's a percent chance that you like mine a thing or not. And so I guess in some ways, like a RuneScape sort of like, experience where you're just like, yep, I'm going to sit here and wait for you to finish mining all this stuff. And then like once you get all the stuff though, it's just like everything is a percent chance of failure, and you suck at the beginning. Or actually, you suck pretty much all the way through. Like, I'm pretty sure they have the level system, and all the mining and all the crafting is like very much not focused on at all, because there's like a 17%, or like at the beginning, like a 17% chance that you make like the item that you want. And if you want to make the really nice stuff, it was like a 1% chance, a 0% chance. And I'm just like, I didn't actually calculate it out, but I'm guessing it'd be something like 20 hours of just grinding through mining in order to like have a good chance of getting like a high-end item. But you just come across the high-end items while you're like fighting stuff naturally. So it's just like, why would anyone go through all the effort to get this stuff in the most boring way? It's like there's no balance to it whatsoever, and it's just like the most boring mechanic conceivable.
Yeah, it's the classic more things is not better. Like, add more systems to your game, add more objects, add more items, add more playable races. It's like at a certain point, one more thing is a detriment to your game, even if it's a good thing. Like, it's just more complicated, more clutter, and these are not good things.
It's like this person has no idea like about game design and like how like,
like
difficulty and challenge curves, and like
it feels like they're like, we're supposed like crafting. That's a thing that we're supposed to have in games.
that's what it feels like. Yeah.
Oh well, I guess you should be able to get like, we should probably implement some sort of economy. How about you go to towns and random things on sale, and you buy that and you go to a different town and sell it for slightly more money. It's like, that's not fun.
Games have quests. Let's put some quests in. What do people quest for?
And that was the other thing, is like, so in addition to like get someone who can mine and smelt, or like mine and craft is like the main like guild like quest thing. Then it was also once you're done with all that, like just go out adventuring is like your quest. And like you go to a town or whatever, and they'll like have the bar, and they'll have like 4 different things. And it's just like, yeah, go to this nearby thing and kill a thing, or like take this person to that thing. And it's just like kind of the traditional like sort of like, escort missions, kill the things missions. And so you go and you do the thing, you come back, and they pay you a little bit of money. And it's just like, okay, that's the game. Like your game is to go from town to town, like kind of Witcher-esque style. So let me solve your problems, and then there's almost nothing that comes of it. Like there's no the game doesn't develop, like the world doesn't advance. There's no meta progression. It's just here's something to do. That it's just kind of like here's a very slight reason to do anything whatsoever, and that always felt lame. Like for me, the fun was always, what's the hardest level thing that I can fight right now? And like, let me just give me some challenge. And so I test, like, can I go into the level 10 thing when I have like level 5 dudes? No, you can't. There's the answer to that.
Nope.
Fought a level 3 thing, and I'm just like, didn't realize it was level 3, thought it was level 2, and then like, oh no, all my people are dead.
Yep.
I lost 4 out of 6 people, and the last was just like, I had 4 people surrounding one bad guy, chipping away while it just was like, it did. And I'm just like, I think I'm gonna lose because I'm doing 1% damage with every hit, and I only have a 35% chance of hit. Yeah. Like, that was okay.
And that was a big problem.
So, and what's interesting about that too is like, sure, like you can get like pummeled to death, and like a big component of roguelikes is death, and like, okay, like you lose your stuff. That's great. I've like progressed in some sort of fashion to advance a thing, maybe. But here, I don't think there's anything like that, where if like in like Invisible Ink or like an XCOM like game, your dudes get brutalized and they're dead. Oh no. But you've made advancements in some sort of meta progression to like, oh, well, I can go and replace them with dudes from this tavern nearby. But like if they're dead, I'm guessing they've lost all of their equipment too. And
no, that's like, no. There's no permanent. You go to town, you pay a small fee, and anyone who is dead comes back.
Oh, really?
Alternatively, you only have 2 people left, and you can't carry all the gear.
Oh, right.
That's on your other downed party members, and so you have to start throwing away valuable items like your plate mail because it's too heavy. And so you can drag your friends' corpses back to the town to revive them.
Makes a lot of sense.
Would is a large missing component of Low Magic Age? I mean, I think like there's an interesting thing about the adventure mode, which pretty clearly is unfinished, but I think has potential in that, if it was procedurally generated, like if it was different every time, and if there was some long-term, like, what's my goal that I'm reaching for? Like, those are kind of like the bare minimum things that we need to attach to. But like, I was thinking through like, well, what's something that would like really help to elevate the adventure mode and really kind of like bring this to be a much more fully fleshed out product. Would the adventure mode in this game be like suited well from like a war sim-esque like back end to it?
I was just thinking like if the epic narrative, which has been the most successful of all time, is save the world, and it's like Lord of the Rings, where like the start of the game is like essentially the orc invasion, and now they're on the overworld, you can actually actively see them advancing, and so your job is to like push them back and like to actually use some kind of strategy with like helping set up defenses in certain places, and like and then tactically getting in there and actually like winning some of the actual fights. I can see how that might work, but
I feel like the combat is okay. It's merely fine.
It's not even, I don't even know if it's that.
It is a moderately competently implemented combat system. And I don't think that we have enough information to judge whether or not a adventure mode would be good. There's so little work that has been done on it that it's the same as if you just give a random person like, write me a story. I don't know. It's probably, is it going to be good? I have absolutely no way of knowing. This person could write beautiful video game poetry, the finest game of all time, and they just haven't started doing it yet. Like, I don't know, because there's no there's nothing that has been put in to suggest one way or the other. It's a hollow shell.
Yeah. I remember when we were playing through War Sim, like one thing that was kind of lost on me for that game was like being able to like see like the world and my place in it. And to some degree, there's a little bit of that in there. This almost feels like the complete opposite end. We're like, okay, I can see the world, I can see my place in it, and like literally nothing else is happening.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because like I feel like the item or the location descriptions in this game are super cool and like would want me to be like, yes, I would love to explore the Five Elders Boneyard or the Shadow Mine or the Archmage's Altar or the Nevernight Grotto. Like these all sound like really awesome locations.
Right. They're all
like,
exactly the
for
same.
example, Collinville. There is a place called Collinville.
Oh,
or Chadton. Cool. These are all like and like
they're all the same.
Yeah, like that's the really disappointing thing is like you go into the Stone Giant's mausoleum and it's just going to be this exact same workflow of like gray squares connected with like smaller gray squares to each other. Of click, okay, explore that room, there's a monster, go fight him in this like 50 by 50 grid. And you have your tactical fight in there, but like to what end? Like in service of what? What's like the ultimate goal that I'm doing this for, other than
to fill all of your item slots? Because it's actually incredibly like I was very curious. That's actually what got me into the first like 5 hours. It's like okay, I've been like my guys are like leveling up, but like I still don't have a helmet for all my dudes. Like I still don't have like an amulet. Like it's crazy how long that took to like get that stuff. And so that was my goal for a long time, was just like, can I get just some base level stuff? Like I don't even like we played Diablo 4 beta over the weekend, and it's funny how different that is, because you start off with like a couple things, but then like immediately everything gets filled up and you're constantly getting new stuff to like replace it. And like that's what Diablo is. It's like a loot game essentially, but like they could have learned a little bit about the reward schedules and how to create something addictive by implementing some of the learnings from Diablo, because they've definitely mastered that.
But like that's not the way D&D works. And that's one of the things, like D&D isn't a loot generator. You find your rewards in other places, and the
friends you make along the way.
You got me.
And like the battle system fundamentally does not have room. Like the best thing that you can get is like +3. So you've got three increments of rewards, and like you go from a D6 to a D8 worth of damage, and like that's it. That's the entirety of the increase. Like you've got 4 possible options for a sword, maybe a little bit more. Maybe it's like, oh, you can add a little bit extra damage or something else, but like the room to scale is just not there. And that's fine for D&D because you're getting better at other things, and it's not really about the combat. It's about the journey. And if you don't have a journey, the combat's not enough.
And this is like, if this game is billed as a D&D combat simulator, I feel like there needs to be more like there needs to be more with that, right? Of like, right now it's just a D&D fight through 5 levels of monster simulator. It's not even so much of like, okay, I'm going to put Shimmy versus Umbarial in a one-on-one combat against each other and hit the auto battle button and see who comes out on top. Like that could be cool. But in this, it's like literally just, okay, I'm going to like create a party of my people and fight against the computer, which I guess is fine. But I'm thinking of something like, I'm sure neither of you have played Totally Accurate Battle Simulator before.
I have, yes.
Okay. So like that's like the silly, like goofy version of what I'm thinking of, where like you have scenarios of like, here are like 3 summoners and you have like 5 warriors. You got to figure out like the tactical positioning to like beat them and solve the puzzle, basically. That would be more interesting. I was going to ask like Colin, because you set up like all of our D&D stuff for us. Like, is there like a non-low magic aid D&D combat simulator that you reference when you're like theorizing about combat encounters? Of like, okay, maybe I'll put 5 lava spirits over here, and we'll put like 3 water guys over here.
No, that's already too many enemies. It's too slow. You guys fight like 2 things because it's like hard to run many monsters to like everything in my mind for D&D is about streamlining combat as much as possible, and making it feel epic, like, and feel like a cool thing, and maybe making up new mechanics that are entirely unrelated to like making up mechanics is what makes the fights fun. Like, okay, cool, you've got the base system. Now, what if the bad guy could just make the floor ice or shoot lava out of the ground? Like, these are things that are outside of the base system, and like that's what spices up the combat. Just throwing a couple more goons in there, all it does is slow. Yeah, it just slows combat down, and that's, I guess, fine. And if you're just you're treating it as an auto battler, which is always a bad sign for your video game. If I'm having more fun by just like watching my guys go and fight, then
that's not true. Dota Overlords
okay, that's fair.
Is a great game.
Okay, you're right. It's a bad sign though if I can't be bothered to click through the beginning of it, and so I'll just auto battle until they get in position, because I'm just like, oh, it's too much work to move all these people.
Right. Well, I mean, like there's something there was for me, like as that extreme optimizer, like I wanted to know like what is the perfect combination. Obviously I went to extreme with all the trolls. I couldn't do that. And so I ended, after like losing a couple of times, just letting my guys all die and not worrying about it. I'm like, okay, obviously summoners are the best, but like you have to have some like ability. You have to have one guy to tank, because if you get in a small room and they just walk up to you right away, your summoners just like get wiped. And so 4 summoners, 1 fighter, and then 1 cleric. And I'm pretty sure that's like the best scenario. So, and you make sure to get the initiative buffs on all your summoners, so that way the very first they have a higher chance of going first. You cast 4 summons, and they just go out, and then that's when you hit space. And even though you can apply more magic on higher level dudes if you need to like get a little extra lightning or something on them, you just sit back then, and then it all plays out. But that was, I'm pretty sure, the optimal strategy for like 90% of fights. And then for that last 10% where you get a hard dude, you just drop the rest of your magic on him. And that was always fine, because you could always just like rest if you needed to, or like leave the dungeon. Like if you're like deep in the dungeon, it's like there's no penalty at all to just leave the dungeon, sit on top of it, rest for the night, go back in and resume.
Yeah. I have 2 final small notes. One, music was surprisingly good.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Continue with that.
I actually thought the music was pretty good. And it got stuck in my head today. And I thought it was incongruous with everything else. Like, it's like, oh, this music's like not too shabby at all.
You didn't get annoyed by like the singing woman just constantly with the high pitch whining almost? I guess
you know why the music is so good?
I don't know why.
It uses the same music as War Sim. In some parts. Asterisk. Yeah. I was
like open source.
Through, so subscribers to the YouTube channel will see that I uploaded a video for sound editing purposes later of like sampling from the battle music. So there's like another house ruler option that you can set of like, make sure to turn on like epic battle music for normal fights or something. And I was like, like the music that you have playing at like the start of the main menu, and I think for the main overworld in the adventure mode is pretty good, and it's exactly what you would think of for an indie fantasy game setting. And then I'm like listening through the battle music, I'm like, why does this sound so familiar? I've heard this before somewhere, surely. It is it's one of the soundtrack pieces from War Sim that is like, and in War Sim, it's like the super low bit, like 8-bit version of it that I think.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't have that one on.
Like put through like a like .wav converter to put into the game to meet like the criteria. But like, I was like, oh my God, this is just, it's the exact same music from War Sim. And
these games, they're 2 sides of the same coin.
They are. I think our rankings will kind of bear that out a little bit, but but yeah, like, and I'm like, okay, like surely they did not rip off from Warsim. I'm pretty sure they both independently went to the same free, like royalty free music website to like go and get it. But I thought it was really funny that like it was it's much higher quality in this game. But it almost sort of felt encapsulating or like emblematic of this game in general. Like this game like feels very high quality. It pretty bug free as far as I can tell, like playing around with it. Interface generally very nice and clean, but like it doesn't have that soul like at all to it, which is the exact opposite from Warsim, where like you have the same music combining to it. That was really funny.
Warsim is all soul, too much soul, maybe.
Yeah.
Best game.
All soul, no body. It's just a disembodied soul.
Disembodied gambling simulator. Yeah.
My other note is this uses Vancian magic, which is you have to pre-select how many spell slots you want or how many spells you want for each spell. And I feel like just having spell slots is an objectively better way of doing it. And I'm glad that 5e does that and Vancian magic isn't used in games anymore. It makes me feel like I'm just I am an intrinsic hoarder, and this makes me hoard spells even harder. And I just found that I wouldn't use spells because what if I need to use the spell of it at another time? I don't like it.
No, I was just dropping summons, and like you never run out because you can always just rest whenever you need.
Yeah.
So I never felt that.
Well, I didn't have. I probably just didn't get far enough in the game to do summons. I summoned like one thing.
That's fair enough. I mean, if I was wise, I would have been done after like a few hours.
I put in 4 hours, and I was like,
"You're the wisest of us, then."
And that was about like, yeah, I feel like I've gotten my time's worth out of this. I don't want to play it anymore.
Well, do we want to move on to rankings next?
Sure.
I want to apologize though for like having picked this. Or like, I mean, I was fooled. I think. I mean, like,
well,
we all looked.
No, we were all fooled.
It looked like it was going to be Into the Breach, or like it looked like a tactical game. Like that's what I was like.
Right.
Oh, look, there. Warsim was very much like not that. It's very story or whatever. And like, here we go, tactics. And so I didn't do enough research, and so that was my bad.
I didn't know if it was going to be good, but I was excited to try it out.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, cool, a fun D&D simulator with no story. Who would have thought? So I expected it to have like a generic fantasy story, which I gotta
save that princess.
I can do that. Like, oh, the demons are invading. They've stolen the princess. Go get the princess back. Okay, fine, sure. Just give me a generic anime, generic fantasy. I'll play it. I have it. I'll go first. I have it as that 13 out of 16. It's below. It's A Valley Without Wind is my number 11 one, and that is the cutoff for games that I actually played and didn't just wash out of. So it is below the threshold of I didn't want to play this game anymore, and I just don't. I was like, there's more stuff to do, but I don't want to play it. Would not recommend. Maybe if they finish the game eventually, it'll be worth looking at again. But like 5 years into early access, I feel like I'm doubtful.
Yeah, I guess I'll go next. I was hoodwinked by this game because like, oh, it's got like really great reviews. All the reviews say, oh, if you like D&D, you'll like this game. But all the stuff that I like about D&D in real life aren't here in terms of like zaniness, in terms of like combat. I feel like is interesting when Colin does it because it's in service of something, right? It's advancing something like, oh, like because we win this combat, we'll be able to do X, Y, and Z. But here it's like the combat is the draw, and I think it's like backwards incentive wise. So I think like this game, and it's a shame because like everything else about the game is competently done. Like the interface is clean, like there's a zillion rules, but like it's easy to like scroll, like find them and scroll through and like figure out, okay, like all this stuff. It is very clear how you build a character. There's a lot of complexity, I think, in the D&D world that you can get overly bamboozled by. And I think that this game does a good job of like, hey, I just want to jump in. I just want to like create 5 sorcerers in like 30 seconds and go on adventure with them. Boom, 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 boom. You're done. Like able to do that. Or if you want to like really finely tune, bespoke them, you can do that too. I think it does a good job. The art, I think, is okay. I think it's serviceable for the most part, but it's not overly offensive. The opposite side of the coin, I think, is stay tuned for sure. Tales of Majayal, which is not the prettiest looking game, has like a very obtuse interface, but I think is 5,000% more fun than this game. So for me, I'm putting this behind Din's Curse and above Hack Slash and Loot for my 14th out of 17th ranked game. I kept thinking like, man, like Din's Curse just like literally has about the same amount of like nothing happening, but it's so much more fun to play because it's just complete insanity the whole time. And there's no like 10-foot tall super leprechauns that you fight in this game, which is a big miss. So so I think it is well housed in that, like, all for how ugly Din's Curse is, it's a lot more fun versus something that looks a lot better with Low Magic Age, but is significantly less fun because of all those other systems.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to find me agreeing with you all for once here, I think. I shouldn't say for once. We tend to agree on a lot of these, but yeah, Low Magic Age, I have my out of 10 system, which I convert to rank, but out of 10, I give it a 4. And my threshold for like a recommend is like at least a 6 or above. And so this falls well below the recommend level. And like, just to put it in comparison with some of the other games, yeah, Din's Curse, I give a 4.5. I did think Din's Curse was better. I thought, what do I have here as worse? Oh, Valley Without Wind, of course, the worst game too. But Cargo Commander and Hack Slash and Loot, I also said were slightly worse. So this game ends up being 12 on my list out of the 17, just because I thought those games were, I mean, at least this one I could sit there and watch the auto battler or like do other things. It didn't force my attention, and I could just be like, oh, tune in, here we go, there's something happening, okay, click away. And so yeah, it's just not, it's not a fun game. I don't play it, and at least not now. And hopefully they can make some of these improvements, some of these suggestions we're making, although they're pretty fundamental large changes for the most part.
I realized that I had 2 number 2 games, so now it's down to number 14 out of 17. So it's losing rankings fast.
Gotta clean up that garbage data.
Well, I have 3 that are tied for 3rd place. And so like when I say 12, I mean really it's like, that's why the rank, I don't know why we can't just switch to this out of 10 system. That's a much better system.
We gotta normalize it somehow. I think the rank makes more sense than a out of 10 score. But
I can't tell you which ones has a higher rank between like these 3 that are at like rank 3. So.
I mean, ultimately, it doesn't actually matter.
It doesn't matter, yeah.
But
let's just leave it at that. Then.
Yeah. But yeah, 10,000 years from now, when aliens are uncovering this podcast and they're like, "Ooh,
they'll know not to play Low Magic Age, and they should play Cogbind."
Yes, that is an objective fact.
Well, yeah, that's debatable, but
yeah, that's gonna do it for our Low Magic Age episode. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can email us at grogpodzone@gmail.com. We'll read your letter on the air. There's only so many YouTube comments that we could fit into one episode. So Mastodon, grogpod at gamedev.place, and our website where we have all of our rankings and previous shows and all that good stuff, grogpod.zone. Our next episode is not a swindle episode. It's a verified, solid, good one. We're doing a bundle episode on both the Hand of Fate games. So we'll be covering Hand of Fate 1 and Hand of Fate 2, which I'm very excited about. I keep desperately trying to beat the final boss of Hand of Fate 1, and I'm just like, I could move on to Hand of Fate 2 at any time. I could do it, but I'm so close. And it just but you know.
I haven't played either, so I'm excited.
And I played 2, and I thought it was a great game, so I'm looking forward to refreshing on that and then playing the first one.
Indeed. Well, let's give it a hand for Low Magic Age
Boo, hiss.
as we very dutifully transition to the end of the program with a solid segue out of the show with more explanation as to the fact that it's the end of the show. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Wait. We'll see you next time in the dungeons.
Ooh.
I don't know if that's a good one.
we'll workshop it. All right.
Fate, hand, fate. 2. Next time.
Dungeons.
Stop recording.